Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of her diplomatic vessel, watching the crystalline spires of Luminara's capital city catch the light of 3 setting suns. After 2 decades of representing humanity across the galaxy, she thought she'd seen everything. The message she'd received that morning proved her wrong. The Luminarians, masters of light manipulation and keepers of ancient knowledge, had lost their most sacred artifact, the prismatic core. More concerning was their request. They wanted a human to handle the negotiations. Not their skilled diplomats, not their advanced AI, but a human. "Ambassador, they're ready for you," her aide Marcus announced, breaking her contemplation. The Luminarian High Council chamber was a marvel of architecture, its walls seemingly made of pure light. 12 council members, their translucent bodies pulsing with internal light, sat in a perfect circle. High Counselor Vax, distinguished by her golden luminescence, spoke first. "Ambassador Chen, we appreciate your swift response to our request. Time is critical." Sarah nodded, noting the unusual tension in the normally serene beings. "I understand the prismatic core was taken 3 standard days ago. What concerns me is why you've specifically requested human intervention." Vax's light dimmed slightly. "The group that took the core, they call themselves the Shadow Collective. Our attempts at negotiation have failed because they operate outside our understanding of diplomatic protocol. They are," she paused, searching for the right word, "unpredictable. And you believe humans are better equipped to handle unpredictability?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. It was humanity's greatest strength, and sometimes weakness, in galactic politics. Your species has a unique ability to adapt, to think in ways that often defy logical progression. The Shadow Collective demands impossible terms, expects us to operate outside our cultural frameworks. We need someone who can match their chaos with controlled chaos. Sarah suppressed a smile. Controlled chaos. That was certainly one way to describe human diplomacy. What exactly are their demands? The council chamber darkened as Vax projected a holographic message. The demands were indeed bizarre. A complete restructuring of Luminarian society, abandonment of their light-based technology, and integration into what the collective called the true path of darkness. "They're not really asking for negotiations," Sarah observed. "This is an attempt at forced cultural revolution." "Precisely," Vax confirmed. "Our society cannot function without the core. It's not merely symbolic. It's the foundation of our technological infrastructure, our way of life. We have 13 standard days before its absence begins to affect our planetary systems." Sarah paced the chamber, her mind racing. The collective had chosen their target well. The Luminarians' rigid adherence to protocol and order made them particularly vulnerable to this kind of asymmetric warfare. "I'll need complete autonomy in handling the negotiations," she said finally, "and access to all information you have about the Shadow Collective, no matter how classified." The council members' lights flickered in what Sarah recognized as their version of concerned whispers. Vax raised a hand for silence. "Granted," she said. "But Ambassador Chen, understand that failure means the end of our civilization as we know it." Sarah met the High Counselor's gaze. "Then it's fortunate that humans have a long history of defying impossible odds." As she left the chamber, Sarah was already formulating plans. The Shadow Collective thought they could use chaos to destabilize order. They were about to learn that humans had millennia of experience turning chaos into opportunity. Sarah's first breakthrough came 3 days into the investigation. While analyzing Shadow Collective communications, she noticed something the Luminarians had missed: a pattern in the static. "They're hiding data in what looks like transmission noise," she explained to Marcus as they worked in her ship's command center. "It's an old Earth technique, steganography, hiding messages in plain sight." The decoded messages revealed a disturbing truth. The Shadow Collective wasn't just targeting the Luminarians. Similar operations were underway across 12 different systems, each targeting civilizations with advanced energy manipulation technology. "This isn't about cultural revolution. Sarah muttered, studying the decoded star charts. They're systematically dismantling the galaxy's most powerful energy infrastructures. But why? Her answer came from an unexpected source. A message slipped through her ship's supposedly impenetrable quantum communications array. Some secrets should stay in darkness. Meet at coordinates attached. Come alone. Marcus strongly objected to her going, but Sarah recognized opportunity when it knocked. 20 hours later, she stood in an abandoned trading post on Nexus Station, waiting in artificial twilight. Brave of you to come, Ambassador. The voice seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves. Or foolish. Humans often blur that line. A figure emerged, humanoid but composed of shifting darkness, like a piece of night-given form. I am Void Speaker Krex. Until recently, I was part of the Shadow Collective's inner circle. A defector? Sarah asked, keeping her voice neutral. Why? Because the collective has lost its way. We were founded to maintain balance, to prevent any single civilization from achieving technological supremacy. But our new leadership, Krex's form rippled with what Sarah interpreted as distress. They've discovered something in the dark between galaxies, something that should have remained hidden. Sarah felt a chill. The energy cores they're stealing. They're building something. A bridge, Krex confirmed. They believe they've found gods in the void. They plan to open a door and let them in. Sarah's mind raced. The implications were staggering. The Luminarian's prismatic core is the final piece. Its light manipulation properties are key to stabilizing the bridge. In 10 days, when the galactic alignment is perfect, they'll activate it. What comes through? Krex's form shuddered. Your species understands darkness better than most, Ambassador. You know that not everything that dwells there should reach the light. Sarah thought of humanity's long relationship with darkness, both literal and metaphorical. Their fears, their stories, their warnings passed down through generations about things that lurked in the unknown. I need proof, she said finally. Something I can take to the Galactic Council. Krex produced a data crystal. Coordinates, security protocols, everything you need to find their base of operations. But Ambassador, the shadow being hesitated. The collective's leaders are no longer entirely themselves. What dwells beyond has already touched them. Sarah pocketed the crystal. In my species' history, we faced gods before. Void Speaker Krex. Do you know what we learned? The shadow being tilted what passed for its head. Gods can bleed. Sarah's voice was steel. And anything that bleeds can be killed. As she left the meeting, Sarah was already composing a message to Earth Command. This had moved beyond simple diplomatic negotiations. Humanity had fought off would-be gods before. It seemed they would need to do so again. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as Sarah presented Krex's evidence. Representatives from a dozen species shouted over each other, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the cascade of accusations and demands. Sarah stood calmly at the podium, waiting. She'd expected this reaction. The idea that the Shadow Collective was attempting to create a bridge to beings that existed in the void between galaxies seemed almost designed to provoke panic. Order. The Council Elder, a centuries-old quantum architect from the Helix Confederation, raised all 4 of their arms. Ambassador Chen, these claims are extraordinary. Opening doorways to extragalactic entities, it borders on mythology. With respect, Elder, Sarah replied. Humanity once thought the same about faster-than-light travel. What seems like mythology to one civilization is often simply unexplored science to another. A representative from the Silicon consciousness, their crystalline form glowing with agitation, spoke next. The human speaks truth. Our deep space sensors have detected anomalous energy signatures matching these specifications. We dismissed them as natural phenomena, but if coordinated. Sarah activated the holographic display, showing the pattern of Shadow Collective attacks. They're not just stealing power cores. They're creating a resonance pattern across the galaxy. Each core they've taken serves as an anchor point. The Void Speaker's data had revealed the terrible elegance of the collective's plan. The stolen cores, when activated in sequence, would create a stable energy matrix spanning thousands of light years, a bridge between dimensions, powered by the combined technological achievements of multiple civilizations. We have 8 days before the galactic alignment. Sarah continued. The Shadow Collective's base is hidden in the Charybdis Nebula. Their defenses are formidable, but not impenetrable. However, we'll need something they won't expect. Cooperation. The chamber grew quiet. Interspecies cooperation on this scale was rare, complicated by centuries of political rivalries and technological competition. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? The Elder asked. Sarah smiled. This was where humanity excelled, bringing together unlikely allies, finding common ground in the face of existential threats. The Helix Confederation's quantum tunneling technology, the Silicon Consciousness's computational power, the Luminarians' light manipulation, Earth's military expertise. Apart, we're vulnerable. Together, she let the implications sink in. And you believe you can coordinate such an alliance in 8 days? The skepticism in the Elder's voice was clear. Humans have a saying. Sarah replied. Necessity is the mother of invention. When the alternative is cosmic horror, we tend to work fast. The next hours were a blur of negotiations, but Sarah was in her element. She navigated cultural sensitivities, bridged technological gaps, and slowly built consensus. Species that had never shared technology began drafting cooperation agreements. Military strategists from a dozen worlds huddled over battle plans. The Shadow Collective had made a critical mistake. In trying to divide the galaxy's advanced civilizations, they had given them a common enemy. And humans, with their talent for unity in the face of adversity, were the perfect catalyst for this unprecedented alliance. As the final agreements were signed, Sarah received an urgent message from her ship's eye. The quantum sensors had detected movement in the Charybdis Nebula. The collective was accelerating their timeline. They know we're coming, she announced to the assembled representatives, which means we got less time than we thought. The Elder's voice was grim. How long? 3 days, maybe less. The chamber erupted in protests. It wasn't enough time. The logistics were impossible. The risks too high. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. Then we do the impossible. It wouldn't be the first time humanity has helped rewrite the rules of what's possible. As the Alliance mobilized, Sarah couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Shadow Collective sought to bring chaos to the galaxy. Instead, they had catalyzed the greatest cooperative effort in known history. And at its heart stood humanity, young, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge the darkness between stars. The Charybdis Nebula loomed before the Allied fleet, its swirling clouds concealing the Shadow Collective's fortress. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Earth dreadnought Prometheus, watching the ships from a dozen civilizations moved into formation. The Alliance's plan was audacious. The Silicon Consciousness would use their quantum computers to predict and counter the Collective's defenses. The Helix Confederation would create tunneling corridors through space itself. The Luminarians would bend light around their ships, creating a cloak of invisibility. But the key element, pure human unpredictability. Status report, Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the tension. Marcus, now coordinating with the Allied fleet, responded, all ships in position. The Collective's energy readings are off the charts. They're definitely accelerating the timeline. Deep scans had revealed the horrible truth. The void entities weren't waiting for the bridge to be completed. They were pushing through, warping reality around the Collective's base. Time itself was becoming unstable. Begin Phase 1, Sarah ordered. The Helix ships moved first, their quantum drives creating tunnels through space-time. The Collective's automated defenses activated, but the Silicon Consciousness was faster, their AI systems predicting and neutralizing each threat milliseconds before it manifested. But the Shadow Collective had prepared for this. Dark energy beams lanced out from hidden platforms, targeting the Alliance's most powerful ships. Several Luminarian vessels disappeared in bursts of twisted light. That's when Sarah revealed humanity's secret weapon. Not advanced technology, but an idea so simple it bordered on insane. "Execute Protocol Trojan," she commanded. The human fleet, which had been holding back, suddenly accelerated to maximum speed. But instead of avoiding the collective's energy beams, they flew directly into them. "Are the humans mad?" the Helix commander demanded over the comm. "Those beams will tear their ships apart." Sarah smiled grimly. "Exactly." The dark energy beams struck the human ships, but instead of destruction, something extraordinary happened. Each impact created a cascade of quantum entanglement, precisely calculated by Earth's scientists. The beams themselves became conduits, carrying specially designed nanobots directly into the collective's power grid. "The ancients used wooden horses," Sarah muttered. "We use quantum physics." Inside the collective's fortress, alarms blared as systems began failing. The nanobots, programmed with silicon consciousness algorithms, spread through their network like a virus, disrupting the carefully calibrated energy matrix. But victory came at a cost. Half the human fleet was crippled, their crews saved only by experimental shielding that had never been tested at this scale. "Phase 2, Sarah ordered, pushing aside her grief for the casualties. They had to move fast. Reality itself was beginning to buckle around the fortress. The Luminarian's prismatic core, still powering the collective's bridge, pulsed with unnatural energy. Through the fortress's viewports, Sarah could see it, tiers in space itself, and through them, shapes that defied comprehension. The void entities were no longer waiting to be invited in. They were forcing their way through. Sarah opened a channel to all ships. "This is Ambassador Chen. Commence final approach. Whatever comes through those tiers, remember, we face it together." The Allied fleet moved as one, human daring combined with alien technology, creating something unprecedented in galactic history, a force that could challenge gods. As they closed in on the fortress, Sarah thought of all the times humanity had faced extinction and survived, all the impossible odds they'd overcome. One more time, she thought, just one more impossible victory. The battle for reality itself unfolded in the heart of the Charybdis Nebula. The void entities emerged through the quantum tiers, massive beings of anti-light that defied physical laws. Each movement they made sent ripples through space-time, threatening to unravel the fabric of the universe. Sarah coordinated the Allied fleet's response from the damaged bridge of the Prometheus. Luminarian vessels contained those reality breaches. Helix ships maintained the quantum tunnels. Silicon consciousness keep predicting their movement patterns. The combined fleet fought with everything they had. Luminarian light-bending technology created barriers of pure energy. Helix quantum weapons struck at the creature's impossible geometries. Silicon consciousness ships projected fields of stabilized space-time. But it wasn't enough. The void entities were too vast, too alien, too far beyond conventional physics. That's when Sarah implemented humanity's final gambit. "All ships, execute Protocol Prometheus," she commanded. "Engineering, initiate core overload sequence." The human ships, already damaged from their earlier sacrifice, began to power up their experimental quantum cores beyond safe limits. The void entities, sensing the building energy, turned their attention to this new threat. "Ambassador," the Helix commander's voice crackled through the comm. "What are you doing?" "Fighting fire with fire," Sarah replied. "Or in this case, fighting chaos with chaos." The human fleet's quantum cores reached critical mass simultaneously. But instead of exploding, they created something unprecedented: artificial quantum singularities. Miniature black holes, precisely calculated and positioned. The void entities, creatures of anti-light and impossible physics, found themselves caught in a web of manufactured gravity wells. Their own impossible nature worked against them as space-time buckled and twisted. "Now," Sarah ordered, "full power to the prismatic core." The Luminarians channeled their recovered core's energy through the quantum singularities: light and darkness, order and chaos, reality and void. All collided in a cascade of cosmic forces. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a silent flash that blinded sensors across 12 star systems, the void entities were drawn back through their own tears in reality. The quantum singularities collapsed, taking the bridges between dimensions with them. In the aftermath, as emergency crews worked to stabilize the damaged ships and heal the wounded, Sarah stood before the Galactic Council once more. "Today marks a new era," she declared. "We faced extinction, not through war or natural disaster, but through the hubris of believing we could control forces beyond our understanding. Yet we survived, not through superior technology or military might alone, but through cooperation, through trust, through the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than ourselves." The council chamber was silent, the representatives of a dozen species contemplating the truth of her words. "Humanity may be young compared to many of your civilizations," Sarah continued. "We may lack the technological sophistication of the Silicon consciousness or the quantum mastery of the Helix Confederation. But we understand something fundamental about survival. It's not the strongest species that endures, nor the most intelligent, but the one most adaptable to change." In the years that followed, the alliance forged in crisis became permanent. The combined scientific knowledge of multiple civilizations was turned toward understanding and protecting against extra-dimensional threats. Research into quantum physics and reality manipulation was carefully regulated by a joint council. And humanity. They gained something perhaps more valuable than technology or political power. They gained respect, not for their weapons or their ships, but for their ability to unite others, to face impossible odds with determination and creativity. The Shadow Collective had sought to unleash chaos upon the galaxy. Instead, they had helped forge an unprecedented era of cooperation and advancement. It was, Sarah reflected, a very human outcome, finding hope in darkness, strength in unity, and opportunity in crisis. The void between galaxies remained dark and mysterious. But now the light of civilization shone brighter, and they faced the darkness together.